Talmud Bavli Tractate Beitzah, page 23a, top of the page. Daf Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, top of the page with the words Al Gabe Cheres Mutar. However, placing them on a scalding fragment of earthenware is permitted, as there is no concern of extinguishing or kindling. And Rabbah said, placing the spices on a hot piece of earthenware is also prohibited because it produces a new scent in the earthenware, and one may not create new things on a festival. The Gemara notes that similarly, Rabbah and Rav Yosef both said the following: it is prohibited to overturn a cup containing perfume onto silk garments on a festival. What is the reason for this prohibition? It is because it produces a new scent in the garment. The Gemara asks, and in what way is this case different from the case discussed in the following Beitzah? One may press a piece of aromatic wood between his fingers and smell it, and one may also snip off a piece of it in order to release its fragrance and smell it. In those cases too, he produces a scent. The Gemara answers, there, a scent exists in any case, and he merely adds to the fragrance, as his pressing or snipping causes the smell to be stronger. Here, on the other hand, where he overturns a cup of perfume on clothing, he produces a new scent. Rava, however, said, it is even permitted to sprinkle the aromatic spices on the coals themselves, just as it is permitted to place meat on coals for roasting. Okay. The Gemara relates that Rav Gavia. Did we ever have Rav Gavia so far? I want to check and see. Come and see. Rav Gavia. Where does he show up? Okay. I think it's only here. Nope. He's in Brachot 8. Nice. January 12th of 2020. Nice. Goes way back. I don't know if he's on... Is he in Me'ilah? Yeah, he appears in Me'ilah 10. And he appears in Brachot 8. So I think we should feel really privileged, because he doesn't show up very often, Rav Gavia. Doesn't show up very often. So Darash Rav Gavia, the Gemara relates to Rav Gavia from Bei Katil, once taught at the entrance of the house of the Reish Galuta of the Exilarch, that Keturah is permitted on a festival, whatever that is. But he did not add any further clarification. Amemar said to him, what is the meaning of Keturah? It means tying ornamental knots by hand. This is the act of a craftsman, and is therefore certainly prohibited on a festival. And if it's referring to burning incense, like Ketoret, this too is prohibited, as he extinguishes some of the coals when he sprinkles the aromatic powder on them. Rav Ashi said to him, actually, it is referring to burning incense, which is permitted, just as it is permitted to place meat on coals for roasting. Some say a slightly different version of this story, in which Amemar said to Rav Gavia, what is the meaning of Keturah? It means tying ornamental knots by hand. This is the act of a craftsman, which is prohibited. If it is referring to burning incense, this too is prohibited, as he produces a new scent. Rav Ashi said, I said this halacha to Rav Gavia, and I said it in the name of a great man, Rava. It actually is referring to burning incense, which is permitted, just as it is permitted to place meats on coals for roasting. It is taught in the Mishnah that one of Rabban Gamliel's 3 leniencies was that one may prepare a whole mikulas, a goat, meaning a goat roasted whole, with its entrails over its head, on the night of Passover. It is taught in a Beitzah in this regard that Rabbi Yossi says, Theodosius of Rome, Todos, Ish Romi, Theodosius, the leader of the Jewish community there, instituted the custom for the Roman Jews to eat whole kids on the night of Passover, in commemoration of the practice followed in the temple. The sages sent a message to him, "Were you not Theodosius, an important person, we would have decreed ostracism upon you. As you are feeding the Jewish people consecrated food, which may be eaten only in and around the temple itself." And itself outside the temple. Meaning you can only eat this around the temple itself. Outside the temple, right? You're making them eat this outside the temple. The Gemara expresses surprise. Can it enter your mind that the sages really meant that Theodosius was feeding Jewish people consecrated food outside the temple? These goats are certainly not consecrated animals. Rather say that he was feeding the Jewish people something similar to consecrated food, which people might mistake for a Paschal offering. Okay. Mishnah is a new Mishnah now. There are 3 things that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah permits and the rabbis prohibit. His cow would go out on Shabbat with a decorative strap between its horns. Rabbi Elazar holds that such a strap is considered an ornament for the cow rather than a burden, whereas the sages view it as a burden. And one may comb an animal with a fine comb on a festival in order to remove ticks and dirt from its hair. The rabbis prohibit this due to concern that he might thereby come to wound or bruise the animal, and one may grind pepper needed on the festival, even in its own mill, although this appears similar to a weekday labor. Rabbi Yehuda says one may not comb an animal to remove ticks and dirt from its hair on a festival because this certainly creates a wound, but one may brush it with a wooden comb, as its blunt teeth do not wound the animal. But the rabbis say one may not comb, nor may one even brush. Gemara, with regard to the Mishnah statement that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's cow would go out on Shabbat with a strap between its horns, the Gemara asks, is that to say that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah had only one cow? But didn't Rav say, and some say that Rav Yehuda said, that Rav said, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah would tithe from his herds 13,000 calves each and every year, which means that he had 10 times that number of calves alone. Why then does the Mishnah speak of his cow? The Gemara answers that it is taught in the Tosefta this cow was not his, rather it was his neighbor's, and because he did not protest her conduct and tell her that it is prohibited to do so, the cow was called by his name, to his discredit, as if it were his. It is taught in the Mishnah that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah holds that one may comb an animal on a festival. The sages taught in a Beitzah what is considered combing and what is considered brushing. Combing is performed with a small tooth comb and makes a wound. Brushing is done with a large tooth comb and does not make a wound. And there are 3 disputes with regard to this matter. Rabbi Yehuda holds that an unintentional act, a permitted action, from which an unintended prohibited labor ensues on Shabbat, is prohibited, as in his opinion is prohibited to perform an action that involves a prohibited labor on Shabbat, even if one has a permitted action in mind and does not intend to perform the labor in question. Therefore, one may not comb an animal in a manner that will cause a wound, even unintentionally. However, he differentiates between the cases. Although he prohibits combing with a small tooth comb that makes a wound, he permits brushing with a large tooth comb that does not make a wound. And we do not issue a decree and prohibit brushing due to combing, as there is no concern that people will err and come to permit even combing in the prohibited manner. And the rabbis also hold in accordance with the opinions of Rabbi Yehuda with regard to the fundamental issue that an unintentional act is prohibited. However, they maintain that we issue a decree and prohibit brushing due to combing. On the other hand, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah holds, in accordance with the dissenting opinion of Rabbi Shimon, who said that an unintentional act is permitted. Therefore, both combing and brushing are permitted, as even if the combing or brushing bruises the animal, there is no transgression of prohibition, as there was certainly no intention to cause the animal wound. Rava said that Rav Nachman said that Shmuel said, and some say Rav Nachman said this teaching himself. The halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon that an unintentional act is permitted on Shabbat, as Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah agrees with him. Rava says Rav Nachman, and then the masters say the opposite, that the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, and the rabbis agree with him. Rav Nachman said to him, fundamentally I hold in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, and I am merely adding another reason for doing so, which is that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah agrees with him.